Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have 3 presentations today. We'll be starting with the Division of Public Safety. We'll be on page 171 of your books with Department of Corrections. And Rusty Leeds will be here to present.
Is he on the phone?
I
Or is
think
he-
he said
he's
he's
here.
coming down.
Lauren, what page should we start on? 171.
Chairman, what you're hearing, I think that's his department heads dialing in. He'll be here shortly.
And other members of the budget team also. Hello, Rusty.
You're up, Rusty, go.
Lorian's already introed you.
She has.
She has.
Like class when I came in. Is everybody ready?
Yep. So you're a real person? I thought you were just on the phone all the time.
Tried to be scarce,
Okay,
stay remote, but.
welcome.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. We will go through the Division of Public Safety budget fairly briefly, and then if you have questions, we will try to answer them to the best of our ability. So, to begin with, just for clarity, this is the Division of Public Safety. It represents 7 departments.
Do you have a handout?
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a handout. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. Thanks for a reminder. We will be on page 125. That's the beginning, anyway. So on page 125, we will be looking at the Department of Public Safety, or the Division of Public Safety, I'm sorry, which includes corrections, the Crime Prevention Fund, which is managed by corrections, the Emergency Communications Department, Emergency Management, Emergency Medical Services, the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department, the Regional Forensic Science Center, and Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1. Okay. And it's not wanting to advance now. There we go. Okay, Department of Corrections. Department of Corrections is going to be on 171 if you wish to follow in your budget book. Unlike yesterday's presentations with the chief or with the sheriff and the district attorney, this will be pretty straightforward and brief. But just to remind you that the Department of Corrections, the mission is to provide a continuum of evidence-based correction services which promotes public safety and accountability while supporting positive behavior change in an effort to reduce recidivism. Corrections encompasses adult services, which include drug court, pretrial programs, work release, adult residential, and adult intensive supervision program. Juvenile services, which includes JRBG alternative program, juvenile intake and assessment, juvenile field services, and juvenile services contracts, as well as juvenile facilities. Corrections serves approximately 10,000 adult and juvenile clients receiving correctional interventions and supervision programs. And their primary effort is to try to keep recidivism down through the programming that they provide to both adults and juvenile clients. So that is the basic framework. We were a little more in detail last year, but we're keeping it to the point this year. Corrections 2020 revised budget was $20,258,412. In personnel, they are at $19,810,808 for 2021. A slight uptick in contractuals and in commodities, very minimal. Adjustments to actual expenses there. And then the interfund transfers is down. That is down because of a CIP project last year at the adult residential facility where we expanded and improved the lobby area to that facility to facilitate higher volume traffic. And so we backed out about $198,000 from the 2020 budget for that project that won't be there in 2021. Otherwise, the interfund transfers are dollars that are allocated to support the state-funded programs in adult to the extent that our general fund dollars, or I'm sorry, to the extent that the grant dollars do not cover the whole program, and that varies from year to year. With that said, ultimately, the budget recommendation for corrections for 2021 is $24,714,477, which represents about a 2% decrease before adjustments. If there are no questions on that, then I will speak to very briefly, given the circumstances that we're in with COVID and potential impacts to our budget. The Corrections Department has approximately $14,377,000 general fund dollars in their budget. A 3% reduction, should that become necessary, it represents about $431,334. And what that would look like in corrections would be a 3% decrease would really look like a reduction of three ISO positions across adult residential, adult intensive supervision, and work release, and potentially the reallocation of 3 ISO positions in the JRBG programming into grant-funded positions at juvenile field services. They would still be able to deliver the same programming, but they would be in a different funding source, at least temporarily, because she has some vacancies in that grant-funded program that would allow for that to happen. Otherwise, it would be the reduction of 3 positions and the relocation of 3 positions in a grant budget. So, if there are no questions on that, then I will move to the next public safety. Same department, different budget. That would be the Crime Prevention Fund, which is on page 231, if you care to follow there. The Crime Prevention Fund, as you remember, you may remember, we moved that from ComCare to Corrections a couple of years ago, since the services provided by that are crime prevention geared toward juveniles. And the purpose of that is to provide it's the same mission. The current programming that is funded through that Crime Prevention Fund are the PANDO Initiative, Paths for Kids, Detention Advocacy through Kansas Legal Services, Functional Family Therapy through Ember Hope, Learning the Ropes through Higher Ground, and the Center for Academic and Behavioral Health, which is the McAdams Academy. Those programs are monitored by our contract with Wichita State and evaluated annually, and we bring that annual report to you to report on the progress and the success of those programs. Historically, and going into this year, the fund balance, or the contractual balance on that is 58203. That looks like a typo. It should be 582,383. Is that correct, Lorian?
There's 300 in commodities.
Okay, we've got 300 in commodities. That's right, I'm sorry. So for the coming year, it's all in contractuals at this point. 582,383. No reduction. A 3% reduction to that would look like $17,471, and that would simply be a reduction in contracts to one of these programs or spread out across all of these programs. Should we elect to do that. Yes, sir.
Is any of that grant funding or is it all general fund?
That's general fund dollars.
It's all general.
Yes, sir. There's at least one other program, there's some grant dollars from the state that support some programming, but these are all your general fund dollars that are allocated toward this purpose. So,
When will we be updated on the success or of these programs?
it's been within the last, I think it was in the last 6 months.
Well, so when will it be again? Like what?
I think Dr. Moreland comes in, we bring her in once a year, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the time
That's
frame right
okay,
now.
that's
I'll
okay.
get you the answer. I don't remember when we last brought her in to update you, but usually it's during a staff meeting.
Okay, yeah, I remember. I just wondered when it was coming up. Thanks.
This is Glenda.
Hi, Glenda.
Hi. Those are done annually, and usually we get the report around January, and I think it's about February that she puts the report out.
So there you go.
Is there any way, Glenda, you could send me the report again? I'm sure you did send it to me, but so that it's at the top of my email. I'd like to refresh my.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we'll move on to emergency communications, which is on page 126. Emergency communications, the programming that is funded there is the Emergency Communications Administration, Emergency Communications Center, radio maintenance, which is the radio shop, and the emergency telephone service. Emergency communications provides radio dispatching services to police, fire, and EMS across the county, all agencies. They maintain the public radio system as a whole while providing service and programming and repairs to system equipment and to radios for other departments to the extent that they have the capability. And with funding through the 911 state fee, those dollars are used to support the equipment, the phone equipment and the radio equipment. So, in the emergency communications budget, it's essentially flat. There are some minor adjustments, but it's essentially flat. Personnel is at 6.5 million. The contractual is at 2.5 million. Commodities are down 3 million from 2020 because in 2020 we had a $3 million allocation to support the CAD RMS JMS acquisition, which is going on right now. So the overall budget generally has a $3 million reduction, 3.3 to be exact, at 9.868150 for 2021. Obviously, these don't reflect any kind of requests from our department directors, and Tom talked a little bit about decision packages, and that will come to you later with information on those, which we've whittled down to very few. In emergency communication in Alora's shop, the general fund dollars are $6,647,717. So a 3% reduction for her would look like $199,431. Her budget is pretty lean. She doesn't have much in contractuals or commodities that is disposable or expendable. It's committed. And so a 3% reduction for Alora looks like essentially 3 full-time FTEs and 2 part-time FTE reduction in order to get to that $200,000 reduction. So she'd have to reduce by 3 full-time and 2 part-time in order to get to that $200,000 3% reduction in the general fund side of her budget.
Probably not an area that I'm interested in reducing. Seems to be rather important.
She's, with the volume of calls that she manages and the number of, the volume of radio transmissions that they manage, reducing staffing would not be good for the overall system.
Last year, we moved some positions around, we changed some part-time to full-time or vice versa, I don't remember. How did that work out? And were you able, the main reason we did it was to be able to start filling positions they hadn't been filling.
Yeah.
So are we being able to fill those positions as a result of that?
She did create some part-time positions, and she has been successful in getting what she was hoping to get, and what she has gotten is people who were trained and working full-time who decided that it wasn't for them to do full-time. They went to something else, but they wanted to stay involved, so she got fully trained, capable dispatchers who come back on part-time basis. So she has had some success filling vacancies with those part-times. And she is, she's asked for some additional part-time positions to continue that trend.
Okay, but those aren't in here?
No, those were managed within the scope of her existing budget as part-time, temporary part-times.
But the whole reason we did that was to make sure that we could have enough people so that they weren't being overworked. And is that working? Is that a process that we approved?
That is helping with her staffing. Would you like to speak to that, Alora? She's in the room. I'll let her come talk to you about her successes and her challenges with that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Elora Forshee, your Director of 911. We have had a lot of success. I am so thankful to report to you that we are actually fully staffed right now. We have been fully staffed. I stand corrected, we have one open position, although we are actually over hiring by 5 for a class that starts next week. So we are over hiring, anticipating, attrition, because that's what we naturally have in the summertime, trend-wise over the last several years at 911. Our retention rate so far this year, we're hovering just under a 1% loss for the year of employees, where last year we were, I think around 7% at this time. And we've only lost one person for the year, where we had 13 people that had left by this time last year. So I think that adding those positions in to where everybody doesn't feel like they are just working continuously with no outside life has indeed helped that.
Very good. Well, that's one of our most important positions. I don't see that we would want to cut anything in there, but I wanted to make sure that the things that we did last year were working for you. So I appreciate the feedback.
Yes, they are bearing fruit. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes. So last year, the legislature adjusted the fees, the cell phone tax fees.
Yes.
Wasn't that going to be a long-term, like over a number of years?
So the increase was 6 cents,
Yeah.
and they would have to go back a second time, and Laura can speak to this as well, but the action last year raised the fee from 60 cents per line to 66 cents per line.
Right.
And that will be static until there's another legislative change.
But didn't they think they would need to increase it again? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you expound on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are seeing some increased revenue from that, but it's very slight. For the first quarter,
Okay.
we're up around $40,000 from where we were last year for the first quarter. What we are seeing now is that as technology is coming, we are getting into as in any field, exponentially increasing technology. So our infrastructure is going to have to be enhanced, which costs money. That infrastructure can be paid for out of 911 tax fees, and that's what the state has been advocating for, is to have that fee increased so that we can stay current with that technology. As it sits today, with what we are collecting in 911 fees in Sedgwick County and what's being returned to us, because remember, a percentage of what we collect is dispersed through some of the less populous counties. So we get about 82% of what we collect out of Sedgwick County back to us. What we collect won't be enough to provide for much growth within our system, let alone sustaining it as it sits as pricing increases.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking, that it was going to be something we were going to have to address again, another.
Yes, and when we address.
How long? 2 years, 3 years? What are you anticipating?
I would assume in the next 2 to 3 years,
2 to
yes.
3 years.
It's really the 911 Coordinating Council is who spearheads that effort. And I think those discussions are ongoing, but nothing formal yet.
Yeah, no, I remember, because
Yeah.
we got it through barely last year in the legislature, so.
Yes, I'm thankful you're thinking about it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Laura.
Yeah, the request last year was much larger than that, but it ended up at 6 cents, which
Well, that's what I
was
thought.
a little bit
They
helpful,
said
but
they'd come
not
back.
dramatic.
Right.
Any other questions on emergency communications? Thank you, Laura. Thanks for walking down.
Thanks, Laura.
Hopefully you don't get wet going back. Okay. Wrong direction. Next is emergency management, which is on page 131. The mission of emergency management is to create a safe, secure, and healthy environment for the whole community through a comprehensive program of prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. And we're living through that right now. Emergency management is a small department, and it's an often overlooked department when things are going well. But during a time like we're in right now, that's when emergency management becomes very vital. It helps coordinate community resources, and particularly those governmental entities who are in the response mode right now, and it coordinates and should coordinate with all of our municipal partners in advance of something like this to help with planning and preparation. So with that said, emergency management, the programming in emergency management that is funded are the Emergency Management Administration, which includes planning, training and exercise, the public warning system, which are 151 sirens, volunteer programs, and the Emergency Operations Center. And then there's also grant funding that supports the program. And the purpose is to build resilience and sustainability in the community, and again, to provide that coordination whenever it's needed during a time of crisis, be it man-made or natural. So, the emergency management budget is, again, flat. Personnel is down slightly. That's simply change in staffing and reductions. The contractuals are flat. Generally speaking, there's a slight shift of dollars between contractuals and commodities. And then the interfund transfers, that represents the $110,000 per year in the CIP budget to support the replacement and repair of sirens. Really, it supports the replacement of old sirens that are not repairable, and or the placement of new sirens should an area in the county be developed and warrant the placement of an additional siren to the already large fleet that we have. So, minus the interfund transfers, which will be part of the CIP presentation, the budget is flat at $744,936. A 3% reduction to the tax fund portion of that budget. The tax fund portion of the emergency management budget is $426,000.
Rusty, there's a question from
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Ness.
Yeah, Rusty, as you're talking about sirens, I don't want to see the sirens coming out of your operational funds, the maintenance of those. And where is the maintenance of your sirens in this budget?
The maintenance of these sirens are general fund dollars, and they are in the contractuals, largely in the contractuals portion of this budget.
And you said something about the interfund transfers was for sirens?
The interfund transfers is a CIP project that has been in the CIP budget for several years as a continuing and ongoing project. And those dollars are intended to, again, replace sirens that are no longer able to be repaired, or to place new sirens in locations that have been developed and warrant an additional
So
siren.
when we see the CIP budget, we're going to see this $110,000 there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well,
But generally, that $110,000 is for the capital project of putting in a new siren. It's not for the daily maintenance because a motherboard went out or because some mechanical failure. Those kind of repairs come out of the contractuals part of the emergency management budget.
okay.
They
and
vary from
does
year to
that
year,
cover
and-
it, or are you having to cover it with operational funds in order to cover the maintenance of these?
Generally, the way that has occurred is it varies from year to year. The dollar amount based on how many repairs have to be made. Last year, Carl Link, who's the director, had asked for an addition of dollars for the purpose of siren repair, and I think we allocated $15,000 last year, or into the 2020 budget, to boost the contractuals for that purpose. And as we're going through the year, we'll see how that sustains. It's his feeling that based on the past 3 or 4 years of actual expenses for repairs, that there's probably some value in adding additional dollars, maybe as many as $30,000 more dollars to the contractual's budget to support repairs of sirens. Repairs and the electric cost to run those sirens.
Okay, but as soon as the siren doesn't go off in one of our districts, we're gonna hear about it.
We try to maintain, generally the standard is to try to maintain about a 95 to 96% active working rate. There's always going to be one or two that during the test on a given week, they don't function correctly. And so we're always going to have a handful of sirens that have some minor issue, and sometimes that's as easy as going out to the box and fixing it with one of our employees. Other times it requires that we use our contract company to go out and use their bucket truck and get up and do the work. And so on any given day, there may be 1 or 2 sirens that have, maybe more than that, there may be 4, 5, 6 sirens that have work orders out on them, waiting for repair. We try to maintain about a 95% functional rate, which generally covers, particularly in the core area, there's a lot of sirens that have some overlap, so we try to make sure that we don't have areas that have sirens that don't get some kind of signal for outdoor, for folks who are
Well,
outdoors.
I know that they're only for people that are outside working, but they're still a life-saving measure that we need to make sure that they do work. So-
Absolutely.
And I don't want to see us drawing down the operational budget when we can have those into the contractual funding, so.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Understood.
thank you.
Thanks. Good questions.
So of that 744,000, the tax portion of that is 426,000. A 3% reduction would look like basically $13,000. And since there is not much flexibility or fluff in the operational budget, as you refer to it, that would be strategically, the biggest portion of that 13,000 would be strategically looking at repairs to those sirens and what we could defer based on their location. If we did a 3% reduction there, it would go to siren repairs, strategically deferring repairs on sirens until we could
That's
make
not a
up the
real different
difference.
direction to go.
I know. Understood. Any other questions on emergency management?
Doesn't
There
look
are
like
not?
it. No,
I'm
it
sorry.
doesn't look like it, so
Okay.
plow on.
That takes us to EMS, Emergency Medical Services, on page 135. EMS, obviously, their primary goal is to provide quality out-of-hospital health care to the citizens and those who are needing their services. Their budget covers administration, accounts receivable, training, support of the posts, their operations division, and their OMD support division. EMS serves a population of approximately 516,000 in the geographic area of 1,000 square miles. And EMS has no outsourcing. We staff them with 100% county employees. The EMS budget also is coming in basically flat. I went the wrong direction, I'm sorry. I'm continuing to go the wrong direction. There we go. It's coming in generally flat. It's overall $21,568,971. The equipment reduction of $584,290 is backing out the cost of the radio replacement for 2020. We bought them new radio. They bought new radios, and those dollars were in the fund. So that $584,000 will not be in the 21 budget because it's been expended on radios. In commodities, there's a reduction of $119,714, which represents a TRB project in 2020. They were replacing the gateways in their ambulances, so that's why that number is down a little bit. And then they did some shifting between contractuals and commodities to shore up actuals. But overall, the budget is flat or slightly down at $21,568,971. When we look at their budget, 3% of the EMS fund budget would be $647,000. And that pretty much gets into personnel reductions in order to support that kind of dollar reduction. And that could equal, 3% could equal as many as 18 FTEs total. which would be about 9 EMTs and 9 paramedics, in order to get to that $647,000 should we find need to reduce EMS budget by 3%.
Rusty, so, but your proposed budget is already minus 4.5%? 4.5% lower? Am I reading that right?
Part of a portion of that has to do with personnel.
Well, I know, but why would we, so you want to do another, I mean, you're.
Oh, I don't want to
offering
do 3%
I
at
know,
all.
I
I'm just,
understand.
I'm just sharing with you what it might look like, how we might get
All right,
there.
I was going to give you a smiley
Following
face.
direction,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Whenever I talk about a 3% reduction, I do
I
it
know,
by-
I know you're talking overall, but I'm just saying, so, okay.
No, I wouldn't recommend it, but
No, I would
if we
agree.
came to a point
If we
where,
had to.
if we needed to reduce 3%, what I would do is take these 7 departments, and then we would strategically go through what they proposed, and we would find
Okay.
the least harmful way to make
I
those
think-
reductions.
okay. I think Commissioner Dennis had a question too.
What is the hourly starting salary of an EMT?
You asked the hard question. I'm thinking it's around $14, but don't quote me on that. I'll need to verify.
That's what I was afraid of. These are the ones that hopefully we groom and get through education and get them turned into a paramedic eventually, but what are we going, we need them.
Yeah.
What are we going to do to enhance someone, or entice someone rather, to become an EMT when we're only paying them $14 an hour? And I know that we're talking about cutting, but I really care about making sure that we have the people, these are our frontline responders. These are the ones we talk about every single day in here that are protecting our community. I want to make sure we keep them.
That was kind of the long-term discussion. As we moved into the newest phase for EMS, Dr. Gallagher and his leadership team have worked to make some adjustments in there and improve the training environment. That's one thing we heard from employees, is that they weren't getting the training that they believed they needed, and we agreed that they weren't getting the training that would be beneficial to them. So they've worked hard to put together and stand up a training program. And part of that, long-term, is talking about, number one, they're increasing the number of EMTs that they're hiring, so that we have a mix of EMTs and paramedics. And then the long-term was, can we get to a point where when we hire EMTs, can we develop part of our training to help them evolve into the paramedic level, which requires an associate's degree. And it has to come from an accredited school, that associate's degree does. So theoretically, we can't just train them in-house from EMT to a paramedic. We would have to partner with a school and an accredited program to get them that associate's degree. But the long term was, if we get a good training program stood up, then down the road here in the next 2 or 3 years, can we also stand up a employee development program where they hire in as EMTs, and then we help subsidize and support their education to get them to the paramedic level, so that we grow them in-house.
From that $14 entry pay, because you can't support a family on that.
No, it's hard to support a family on somewhere between $13 and $14 an hour starting.
So if we're at $13, $14 an hour, and these are the people that we tout every day that we truly appreciate, and they're protecting our community, how are we going to entice the people that we want into that job?
I might want to comment here, Commissioner, 2 quick comments. First of all, the 3% cut exercise, every government in this country is going through this exercise right now because of COVID. So it is an assignment that we gave each department. We all hate it, but it's the reality, and we have to prepare for potentially a worst. So just a comment. I don't think anybody getting out there likes these ideas, but we have to do what we have to do to maintain fiscal solvency. On the other issue with pay, Commissioner, we had a fairly aggressive pay analysis being done by WSU. Dr. Gallagher has come forward proactively before COVID with a fairly aggressive pay increase across the board for his staff, which would have addressed and raised some of these lower level salaries to a higher level. That is all still in queue, but it is not something I don't think we can consider for this budget year, and I hope that staff understands that. We will bring that back clearly, hopefully in next year's budget process, but for this year, with the environment, this is the situation we inherit. But we are thinking, everything you are saying is germane. We are thinking about that. We had a plan in place to reconcile that until 2 months ago, and now I don't know that we have the room anymore or the latitude to do that right now.
Okay. I understand, but I sure hate seeing our top of the line first responders starting out at less than $14 an hour.
We all do, sir. That is, you are correct.
On a positive note, they have been successful in attracting and hiring. They've done very well hiring over the past couple, 3 months. The long term is how well they're able to retain those folks once they get them in the door. But their staffing is looking better. They've done a good job of recruiting and hiring, and so they're looking better right now. But long term, there is advocacy from the director, to look at pay for those employees and try to get them to a level where they aren't enticed away by other medical jobs that pay better, using their skill sets in a different way. So, yeah.
Rusty, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's not a significant amount, but is the ICT-1 project part of this budget?
There
Ongoing?
was no budget ask for support of that there was no decision package specifically for that.
I guess I'll go ahead and ask you my question.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So switching gears for a second, for charges for service, the struggle with providing for a family at $14 an hour, there's also the flip side of you needing to use the service. You call 911, you have to take an ambulance ride to get there, but you really can't pay for the service. So what kind of mechanism or programs do we have to help people who have utilized the service, but is there a payment plan? Is there, a cash reduction if they're paying in cash? Or what kind of mechanisms do we have in place?
Our billing is managed by an outside firm that we've contracted with.
So it's pay it all, or you go to collections?
Generally, it's managed like any other medical payment. You're going to be billed for it, and then they will work with you on payment plans or ways for you to pay. If you're responsive and you make attempts to pay, then they'll work with you
Okay.
to work it out.
Okay,
But as a matter of policy, in our fee schedules, there's nothing built into our fee schedules that gives discounts or any specific direction on the county negotiating with those folks. It's done by our billing group.
okay.
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 Next will be the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department on page 233. MABCD ensures all residential and commercial structures are properly and safely planned, built, and maintained within Sedgwick County, using national best practices while providing equitable rules and excellent customer service to local industry. Supported within the fund is the Building Trade Permit and Licensing Administration, Building Inspection, Land Use, and then the County, City of Wichita Administration fee funds. And we can go through the purpose there, but provides a safe and secure communities with no accidents or deaths resulting from code deviations is, one of the big ones there. They do a lot of stuff there. For 2021, overall, the budget is flat and ultimately comes out at a 4.14% decrease from the 2020 revised of 8.3 to the 21 request of 8.0. In the personnel column there was about $233,000 reduction that was based on the elimination of 3 FTE and the unfunding of an unfilled environmental position that's been sitting unfilled for quite some time. In the contractuals area, there was a reduction based on reimbursements to the City of Wichita for salaries. And again, that relates to the transition of some positions to the county from the city, which was part of the overall long-term plan for the consolidation of those entities. Commodities are up a little bit. They intentionally increased commodities in order to make some purchases this year of some equipment and some uniforms, some equipment, and some other materials that they anticipated needing this year. And then the equipment account is down. They had a one-time equipment purchase in 2020 that was funded for 2020 that will not appear in the 2021 budget. So those were kind of the ups and downs of the budget, and it ultimately comes out generally flat, minus the 233 for the reduction in staff. Actually, about the around 270 for reduction in staff and unfunding of an unfilled position. So for the Metropolitan Area Building Construction Department, they are revenue funded. They're not general fund. They're carried in the general fund, but they are a revenue generating and revenue funded entity. However, if we look to them for some reduction, 3%, number one, we know that they have enacted a 10% fee reduction on permits, and part of the discussion on that, and was approved by the commission, was that fee, the director has discretion to remove that fee should financial situation warrant. However, given the circumstances that we're in currently, it would seem kind of counterintuitive to increase the fees on our business, our construction and developers during a time whenever they might be struggling themselves. But it's always an option. If not this year, then as things start to recover in 21, we could back that fee off some in order to boost revenues in the later year to make up the difference. But that's an option. Otherwise, we have one employee down there that's been furloughed. We have 4 positions that are currently unfilled, have been unfilled to this point this year, and Chris believes he can carry those unfilled positions through the rest of the year, which would amount to about $250,000. And then those projects in commodities, some of those purchases and some of those projects that they had allocated for this year, they have not initiated those yet. And so he believes that he could also carry through the rest of this year without initiating those projects, which would save about another $160,000. So between leaving positions unfilled and deferring some of those purchases and projects that they had planned, they would meet or exceed 3% through that mechanism if it became necessary. So,
Mr. Dennis.
I'm sorry. I'm
Sorry.
sorry I got so many questions today. I
That's okay.
apologize. But this is 100% fee-based? There is no general fund money in this?
that is correct.
So why do we, if it's generating its own revenue, why are we worrying about trying to cut that?
Well, I would defer to Lindsay. Looking at what's been occurring over the past, since about early March, at least for projection purposes, there's a concern that there might be reductions in revenue for the year, which would cut into their fund balance, and I would defer to Lindsay to speak to the technical issues of that because it's complicated.
It is complicated, isn't it? Everything. So it lives in the general fund, and so to be fair and equitable, we did say we would like to see reductions from everybody who lives in one of those property tax board funds. But to Rusty's point, it is a very pragmatic approach even for MABC because he's right. Revenues are down through April of 2020 versus through April 2019. And so if this becomes a long-term sustained trend, then certainly we need to see some corrections to the budget to make sure that they are able to, survive the long term. Now, they do have a healthy balance, and so that is theirs only to use. And so that could extend this, excuse me, and maybe give it a little more time. But again, everybody went through the exercise. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to be recommended.
Okay, well, my only point is that if we can get past COVID-19 and get the economy stimulated again, we're going to start building. And at that point in time, MABCD is going to be key. We can't have builders come up and say we're not building because we can't get inspectors out there, because we really do have to try and start the economy. So I don't want us to be a bottleneck in the entire process. And just to let you know where my thought process is coming from. When I was on the MAPC back in 2008 and so forth, we saw nothing happening during that period of time. And then as soon as we came out of it, then we saw all of these people wanting to rezone, replat, building permits, everything happening after that. And so I don't want us to, as I said before, I don't want us to be the bottleneck, because it's going to come back.
Yeah, Chris is watching this very closely. He and Courtney are obviously watching this very closely. There's been a slight downturn in residential remodels, and there's been a slight downturn in commercial plans that have been coming into them. But projects that were pre-planned, that were planned and underway prior to the stay-at-home orders, those are still moving on. So they still have work going on. Their inspectors are still in the field doing work, and they don't really want to propose cutting positions or anything like that, but they are watching closely to ensure that they stay solvent and that we don't need to, support them with non-revenue funds down the road. So
Well, thank you.
we'll monitor it closely, and we'll work with accounting and with finance to ensure that we're staying on top of it.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Okay. And we will move to the Regional Forensic Science Center, page 163. Okay, the Science Center, they strive to provide the highest quality medico-legal and advanced forensic laboratory services in support of the criminal justice and public health systems for Sedgwick County. The funding for Science Center supports programs, the Science Center administration, laboratory management, biology/DNA laboratory, toxicology, criminalistics laboratory, autopsy, investigations, and quality assurance section. The purpose, the coroner's office fields about 3,400 death reports and conducts post-mortem examinations on 900 cases per year. The crime lab receives about 15,000 items to test and analyze in the areas of tox, DNA, firearms, drug identification, and fire debris. They provide the cause and manner of death in accordance with state statute, and they serve law enforcement, fire departments, state and federal prosecutors, local and state public health departments. So those are the many things that they do with the staff that they have. For 2021, you'll again see basically a flat budget. In the contractuals column, there's an increase projected of about $59,000 to support maintenance of some of the technical instruments that they have there. And in the equipment area there's a one-time expense. They bought some robotics from a DNA grant and some other equipment with the JAG grant. So that $276,000 allocated in 2020, those grant dollars are being spent this year on that equipment, but will not appear in the 21 budget. So with the reduction from the grant dollars and some minor adjustments in the personnel dollars there, they come out generally flat at $4.3 million for 2021. Just to go through the exercise one more time, a 3% reduction to their $4.3 million budget equals about $130,000. And again, their commodities and their contractuals are pretty fixed. There's not a lot of flexibility there. So in order to get into those kind of dollars, you're talking the reduction of staff, which would be the reduction of scientists, reduction of 2 scientists to meet that $129,000, $130,000 3% reduction. That would be strategically picking which departments you want to see increases in turnaround times. So it would be challenging, but that would be the way we would have to go there. And if there are no questions on that, then we will jump to the final, which is the fire district. The fire district is on page 151, and they are dedicated to creating a safer community through prevention, preparedness, and effective emergency response. Their budget supports fire administration, fire maintenance, fire prevention, fire training, and fire stations. Fire district has 153 FTEs that work 24/7 in fire protection, medical response, technical rescue, hazardous materials, and disaster response. Their area of responsibility is 618 square miles of Sedgwick County, which includes a number of municipalities and the unincorporated areas of the county. And then they also work with their partners in other municipalities whenever requested for aid through the aid agreements that exist. The fire department comes in at, again, largely flat. Lost my page. Okay. So the fire department, you will see for 2021 an increase in debt service. And what that represents is the purchase of equipment and apparatus. We're currently going through an RFP process now, and in the long-term vehicle replacement or apparatus replacement plan that's been in existence for about 3 years now, they are anticipating the purchase of 2 quints and a tender, which would be delivered in 21 and increase the debt service, overall debt service cost. And in the equipment line item, there's a reduction there from $1.29 million down to $205,000, and that's because in 2020 we purchased radios. We purchased breathing apparatus and radios, and we also purchased 2 squads and a brush truck. So that $1 million reduction in equipment for 21 is because of those purchases in 20, breathing apparatus, radios, and squad and brush trucks. So their overall budget for 2021, 2020 the revised was 19.9. Their overall request for 2021 is 18.7. Questions on that? Yes, sir.
We haven't gotten a briefing for a long time on consolidation. So I don't know where we're at on consolidation. We did hire Brad Crisp in to do that. Since I don't see us moving, do we need to assign him to some other duty than consolidation? I don't know what's happening. That's the problem. We haven't been getting briefings.
With the onset of COVID, just prior to the onset of COVID, we had an en banc scheduled so that Brad and so that Chief Williams and Chief Snow and Deputy Chief Crisp could provide an update to both the commission and the council on the work that they're doing on consolidation and on integration of services. That was canceled because of the onset of COVID and the stay-at-home orders. And in that vein, we basically have suspended any work on consolidation. Deputy Chief Crisp has been repurposed and has been involved heavily with a lot of the operations in EOC and helping to support the coordination between our hospital partners and the manufacturing partners in the community who were trying to make gowns and masks, and we ended up purposing him to interact with those companies and also interact with the hospitals and some of our other partners to coordinate what the needs are, what they can make, whether it's the quality we need. And so he's devoted quite a bit of time to that, in addition to continuing to work on some of the functional consolidation stuff that they're doing behind the scenes, but they're not actively working on that because they're all tied up on COVID. So I don't know that we have any plan in the near future to come back for a consolidation discussion manager. Probably not until this is resolved down the road a few months.
No, I think, Commissioner, I have a list on my grease board of what we call projects in hiatus and consolidations right now in that mode until we clear COVID, and I think we can resurrect the discussions. Unless the commission wants to push forward with that, it would be very tricky to run right now with the staffing the way it is. So,
Well, I think Brad Crisp would be fantastic in doing what you're asking him to do. My only question is, should he be being paid out of Fire District Number 1 funds? Because what he's doing is benefiting all of Sedgwick County. Or should he be paid out of funds from Sedgwick County of some sort. I don't know that the residents that are out there paying 18 mills should be supporting the entire county.
He's
So
not
I
doing,
can-
he's not doing that on a full-time basis. Understand, he's still doing fire department duties, but he is, some of his time is dedicated toward EOC operations and working with the manufacturers and the hospitals, so.
And so, Commissioner, yes, for the long term, if this COVID situation shifts into other duties, we can begin to split that position between fire district and county funds relative to his duties or anything else that's going on. So yes, we can absolutely be responsive to that, but that has been my understanding to date is he's still performing fire district work, so we
I'm
haven't
not
moved him
saying
up
I
there yet.
object in any means how you're using him. I just want to make sure that we're paying him out of the right fund.
Yeah, it's very fair.
If he's working on COVID duties, would that qualify for, how is the CARES funding? Will that be a?
So that's a tricky question. We think yes, but the reason it's tricky is because he was included. We do have budget authority for personnel in 2020 budget. And so we just need to be sure that when we are doing that, we have the adequate documentation to show how his time is used. And then if so, we can probably make the case. Hopefully we'll be getting Wood O'Brien stood up. We'll do our intro call, and then after we get through the intro call, we have to provide them our documents and our policies, and then after that, we'll start to get that consultation. So we're still a little bit of a way out from having that meaningful kind of consultation back, but we should have answers to that type of thing soon.
Thank you.
Okay. So the fire department is property tax funded, almost exclusively. There's some vehicle registration fees that fall in there too, correct? But generally speaking, $18,758,000. 3% of that would be just over $500,000 at $562,000. And to finish out and round out here with our 3% discussion, 3% for the fire district would look 3% would look like $562,000. The chief and his leadership team sat down and offered their suggestions. And their primary suggestion was that if, for 2021, if we're looking at a short-term, a one-year hardship, financial difficulty because of COVID, their primary recommendation would be that you utilize fire district, the fund balance, some of the dollars from the fund balance to maintain operations at the current level for that one-year period, as opposed to dipping in and cutting positions or doing anything like that. They offered some alternatives, which would include using fund balance to pay the 2021 debt service, as opposed to cutting into their budget authority. Another option would be to absorb that 3% by utilizing salary savings that they anticipate for year end, as well as reducing mandatory callbacks. Collectively, those two things would amount to about 3%. What would happen if you reduced mandatory callbacks would be you would short staff some shifts at some stations, and so they would run with fewer firefighters per shift at that particular station than what they have allocated. And then they had some others. They had another option where they would simply look across all fund centers in their budget and make strategic reductions in all of those, which would include year-end salary savings and then some reductions in purchases and different types of software allocation or fees and stuff like that in order to get to that 3% across all of their cost center funds. So those were the kind of things that they threw out as options, primarily suggesting that we use fund balance to get them through 1 year and as opposed to making cuts. So something for the fire board to consider. Chief wants to make sure the fire board considers that option of using fund balance as opposed to
But they're
imposing cuts.
100% funded by property tax.
Yeah.
So yes, they are, the mill levy and even the motor vehicle taxes are derived from personal property taxes.
Yeah.
But what we're really worried about in most of our funds on trying to do this different cut procedure is because of the loss of income from sales tax and so forth.
Right, so the fire district is in the fire district general fund. And so they don't have retail taxes, they don't have any of that, but they are property tax supported fund. And so we do anticipate that if we have that same kind of reduction in property tax over time, that would have a similar effect to them that it would have on the county. And we do owe you all that financial forecast. And so we would look at all of those options because they are a separate legal entity. But the problem with that too is then if there is an issue and down the road, if something happens with assessed values or with the property tax rate, the county can't bail them out because we are a separate legal entity. And so that's why we just need to be really careful about how we approach their budget, and probably talk through what an appropriate level of use of fund balance would be.
Chief, I know you're probably on the line. Do you wish to speak to the fire board briefly? You got about 2 minutes.
And I do think.
No, we think you described all our intentions were clearly.
You're very muffled. You're good?
Yes.
Okay, they're good. Just wanted to give them a chance. Okay, well, that covers the 7 departments under public safety. I guess we can go to the final slide, which you probably don't need to see, but, well, you may want to see it. Taking all those 7 collectively, the 2020 revised budget for the Division of Public Safety was $95.6 million. The proposed for 2021, minus any adjustments that might occur, is $88.56 million, which represents, at the moment, a 7% reduction. And then, like the manager said, there may be 1 or 2 decision packages that come back to you later, but they may not be, may or may not be from any of these departments. We'll see.
Okay. Well, overall, it looks like your groups have done a lot of work in this, so thank you very much.
They're working hard to do the right thing, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rusty. Sorry, I had to make questions.
Oh, no, I'm glad you had questions.
Commissioners,
again,
our next presentation will be from the Division of Human Resources. We'll be on page 40 of your books. It's scheduled at 2:15. Oh, there's Sheena. And Sheena will be presenting.
You fixing that from over there, I think?
Chairman,
Karen?
would it be okay to take a short 5-minute break?
Okay, yep. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Chairman, I think we're at 5, whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Sheena. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We are here today to talk about the Division of Human Resources. Our mission, we are here to support all the divisions of Sedgwick County, and we are committed to hiring and retaining skilled individuals who can lead, innovate, and deliver exceptional public service. In all our interactions, we model respect, engage in problem solving, and act with integrity. And the departments I'm going to address today are compensation and classification, work environment, workforce development, HR administration, and employee development. We also deal with benefits, employee benefits, but we will not be addressing that in this presentation today. First area I'll discuss is compensation and classification. And our budget requests remain relatively flat. For 2021, we're requesting $284,682. Work environment, that area encompasses many of our areas that deal with FML and ADA leave for our employees. And for 2021, we are requesting $260,807. There is an increase in there, and that is due to us changing personnel around and putting them in the work environment fund, which was different than 2020. Our next area is workforce development. And again, in that fund, it's remaining relatively flat. We're asking for $317,906. The biggest portion of our budget is with HR administration. That's where a lot of the salaries are hubbed, and we do a lot of our contractuals there. And we're asking for $443,666. There is a change there. That decrease on the personnel side, we are still working through trying to find our deputy CHRO position. So that is accounted for in that percentage. And the last area, finally, is employee development. This is our overall organization training and staff development. And we are asking for $253,203, again, relatively flat. So overall, our budget for human resources has not changed much. We're asking for $1,560,264 in all, just a very, very small decrease from 2020 revised budget. Do we do the 3%? As we were looking at doing a 3% cut with the Division of Human Resources, we try not to spend anything more than we should. A lot of our services go to support the rest of the organization, so a 3% was very drastic in our area. We were looking for roughly almost $47,000. We are proposing to cut the training budget, approximately $25,000 in that. That's for the organization. We would also look to cut HR staff training, and then that would also reduce one of our staff members as well.
So Sheena, I mean, I'm not an expert in HR, but it seems like the rules in the HR world change all the time, legally and everything else. So
Yeah.
I'm a little hesitant to ask you to cut training because it's almost, isn't it real time all the time? Aren't you continued training?
It is,
Like
and
continued
again, we're
education?
trying to develop the organization as well. So having those training dollars is important. We can make sure that they're essential trainings that we're looking at. You might recall last year that we began putting an emphasis on supervisory training and develop those supervisors. We would like to have some funds prepared for that as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing what you do to cut. But
Yep.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Sheena.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Our final presentation today will be the Division of Administrative Services. We'll be starting with facilities on page 94, and Tania Cole is here to present.
think this is it.
And it should be open at the bottom. It's that one.
This one. Can you both start? Okay. Ready?
And what
Okay.
page, what page does it start again?
94.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Tania Cole, Assistant County Manager. Oh, gosh, I need to go get it. Do you mind if I go get the handouts
Where
real
are they?
quick?
I'll go grab them.
On my desk.
Okay.
Hopefully you can find it among all the other stuff on my desk. Okay. Sorry about that. I came over quickly, so let me start over. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Tania Cole, Assistant County Manager. Here this afternoon to present on the Division of Administrative Services. Also, this afternoon via WebEx is Andrew Diltz, Director of Facilities, Penny Polwin, Fleet Director, Chief Daryl Haynes of Courthouse Police, and Anna Meyerhoff, Central Services Manager. And so I'm here this afternoon to talk about the 2021 budget development of the Division of Administrative Services. Departments included in today's presentation is Facilities, Courthouse Police, Fleet, and Central Services. I'll start off with Facilities. Facilities' mission is to provide accessible, safe, and healthy physical environment where citizens and staff can conduct county business in a productive and efficient manner, and that's done with 42 FTEs. The departments covered in facilities is facilities maintenance and project services.
Chairman, could we get someone to mute their phone?
Somebody needs to mute their phone, please. Thank you.
That's distracting.
Okay, so for 2021 facilities budget, total 2021 request is $7,659,679. That is a increase from 2020. That increase is about $133,327, and that is taking on the. We are acquiring the building at East 9th Street, the Health Department. And so that additional funding is to cover utilities, groundkeeping, maintenance, and custodial of that 30,000 square foot building. I might just also, every year in the past couple of years, you've heard me come to you with anticipated increase in electrical and gas. This year, we are not anticipating any increases in those utilities, so we did not ask for an increase this year. 3% cuts. We went to all of our department heads to discuss what a 3% cut might look like. And so what we are suggesting for facilities to cover a 3% cut, we will see a reduction in custodial contract pricing of about $45,000. So we will see that in our budget for next year. We are recommending to forego window washing in 2021 if we need to do a 3% cut. We're also suggesting that we adjust thermostat set points to see a savings of about $23,000. And then also suggesting to obtain a 3% cut to reduce custodial services for staff areas. And that would see approximately about a savings of $152,000. Those all combined would see a savings of about $237,000 to get to that 3%. And when I suggest reducing custodial services for staff areas, that's not completely cutting out custodial services for that area. That's just reducing it from a 5-day to a 3-day schedule for cleaning those staff areas. So any questions on facilities before I move on? Okay. Next, I'll cover Courthouse Police. Courthouse Police mission is to provide a safe and secure environment for the courthouse campus, juvenile courthouse campus, and county parking garages by screening, monitoring, preventive patrol, and serving as uniformed law enforcement first responders. That's done with 27 FTEs. For 2021, budget request is $1,441,832. You'll see that that's a decrease there due to JAG grant that was in the 2020 budget. To obtain a 3% cut, if we need to go there for courthouse police, we would do that through eliminating a vacant public relation and information clerk for a total of $48,000 in courthouse police. Okay. I'll move on to.
Tanya, I have a quick question. You
Yes.
said courthouse police, just so I'm familiar, 27 FTEs?
That's
And
correct.
Is that, so they do more than just this building?
They do. They do this building, and then they also do the juvenile courthouse on Morris Street.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And that's a combination of full-time and part-time staff. Okay, moving on to Fleet Services mission, to provide proper vehicles and equipment, effective fuel services, and high-quality, timely maintenance and repairs to meet operational needs of supported Sedgwick County government and departments divisions. That's done with 14 FTEs. Their 2021 budget request is $10,098,792. Their 3% reduction would be obtained by postponing any fleet acquisition in 2021. I talked to Penny about this a little bit. She could identify some fleet vehicles. She found that she could find that in public safety vehicles, but she would prefer that if that is something that we needed to implement, she would rather have a clear picture when 2021 came around, rather than identifying specifically any particular vehicles. And so we would just want to say at this point, postponing any fleet vehicles for what's on schedule for 2021 to get to that 3%. And that 3% would look about to be $257,000 for the fleet budget.
What goes into commodities and equipment? What's the difference between those two for fleet?
Commodities, I think, is basically your what you need to do for maintenance of the vehicles. The equipment is actually your acquisition of vehicles.
Oh, that's the vehicle purchase.
Yes,
That's
and
what the
can you
pool
correct
is
me if I'm-
for? So that comes out of the pool?
Correct.
Commodities also includes fuel, which would be a big part
Thank
for them as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and then last one I have is Central Services. Their mission is to partner with county departments and divisions to provide quality customer service and resources that are efficient and cost-effective. That's done with 23 FTEs. That includes the print shop, who uses a mix of in-house printing and outsourcing, the mailroom, who processes and provides postage for all of our interoffice and outgoing mail for the county and district court, combined call center, which includes the tax call center, who takes care of the treasurer's office calls, as well as public services call center, who takes care of ComCare and the health department, and records management, that oversees the management of records with county records management policy and the Kansas Government Records Prevention Act. So for Central Services, the 2021 budget request is $2,626,429. You do see a decrease in the 2021 budget, and that's due to $125,000 from postage costs in 2020 for the presidential election. So for the 3% budget cut there, that's a combination of what they came up with was a full-time position in the call center, 2 part-time positions, one in the print shop and one in records management, and then a combination there of about $10,000 to cut back on letterhead and envelopes that would be color. They would move to black and white, reducing their gloss stock as well as box stock for records management to come up with in total for the 3% cuts. So the division summary then for administrative services in total is $21,826,732. just under 1% decrease from 2020. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you have on administrative services.
Okay. Any questions? I don't see any. Thank you, Tanya.
Okay. Thank you.
That was our last presentation for the day. We do have some time scheduled for discussion if there's anything we'd like to talk about.
Well, looks like today's group was all,
Actually, with Tanya's in here, I do have a question.
Tanya? Okay. Commissioner O'Donnell has a question. Yeah.
It kind of goes into facilities, but are we still planning on moving ahead? And I know I talked to you briefly about the election office, or with the economic condition, are we not going to?
So right now, we have Steve Martins out looking for possible facilities for the elections office. And I think I might defer to Lindsay on this because we do have the elections office in the CIP for 2021. Lindsay, do you want to kind of speak to that?
And we talked about the CIP yesterday.
Well, we talked very highly about last year's adopted CIP. On next Tuesday is actually when you'll get the updated tentative recommended CIP, and that's where, if you remember in last year's budget, we actually had it on the watch list because we just didn't feel like we had enough information. Now, there is more information, and so you will see it included as a bond issue in 2021 for $3 million, and we'll talk about all of that on Tuesday.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. Okay, well, anyway, so the presentations today all had flat to minor increases and even some reductions, percentage-wise at least, as opposed to yesterday when we had, what are those called, requests?
Decision packages.
There you go, decision packets. So, anyway, is there any comments so far? We're about halfway through, or not halfway through?
Could I make one comment if I could, just
Sure.
because I think it's helpful? So the reason you're hearing so much about service reductions with 3% and the reason I think they seem so significant is truly because departments have been living in flat budgets. Commissioner Howell can attest to this since he's been here. Departments have lived with flat budgets with only very strategic increases since we went through 2011, 2012, 2013, when we cut $20 million out of the operating budget. And so the sheriff said it yesterday, we've been doing more with less as long as possible, to the point where you really can't anymore. There may be some very small few pockets of the organization where you might be able to do that. But really and truly at this point, we're cutting services. And so that's why you will see flat budget requests. That's what we ask them to do. We'll bring some very selective decision packages back to you where I think the leadership team feels like there's just not really an opportunity to at least not talk about it. And so I just want you to be aware why those 3% cuts seem so dramatic. It's not because I truly don't believe it's because people are trying to game the system or trying to manipulate a process. It's because we're just really lean, and we have been for quite a while now.
Okay.
So, sorry, that was just my comment. I wanted to add for context.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Tom, do you have anything to add? Okay. All right. Well, then we will see everybody again tomorrow morning at
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
And it's a whole day. Very, very good.
You have a 3-hour lunch.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Oh, it does